What is happening? You are on WNHHLP New Haven 103.5 FM. I am not in New Haven. I'm in Oakland, and I am on the air with Mimi Pond. Mimi Pond, where are we getting at you at? I'm not
I'm
sure that's a sentence.
I'm down in Los Angeles, Fred, as usual.
Okay, okay. How are things down in Los Angeles right now?
Well, things are pretty good. I just came off my book tour and it was really great and exciting. And now I have to get used to not being adored by hundreds.
Well, you'll have to just go back to the dozens that I'm sure adore you on a daily basis. You'll have to like kind of decompress a little bit. But we're gonna help you in a couple of weeks. You're doing a couple of appearances up here, and you're gonna have like mobs of it.
Yeah. Yeah. I got all my people up there because
Yeah.
I love me some Oakland, man.
Your Oakland has shown up quite a bit in your comments. For instance, I know you through, I know people would know you through your writing for television, a small show called The Simpsons, a little thing that had a lot of people accusing me of being something I absolutely was not, but there's nothing wrong with it, called Designing Women.
Uh-huh.
I think it's fine to watch that as a 15-year-old boy. It's what made me the man I am today. But yeah, I'm curious, like how I know, like for me, 'cause I live in Oakland and I'm never leaving because I got rent control. So, but what is it do you think about Oakland that has left such an indelible mark on you that you come to again and again?
Oakland is just so real, it's like really down to earth. It has a vibe to it that's very like subversive left wing working class. It's
Yeah.
got a long tradition of that. And it's just a lot of weirdos. And it was a really well kept secret for so many years. It was just a perfect place to live. I just loved it there. And sadly, now it's been discovered.
Yeah. Yeah, it's partially my fault. I didn't send up a bat signal, but I definitely was like one of a wave of gentrifiers. Just not the worst ways, because I was a poor
Well,
gentrifier.
no, I mean, it's like San Francisco without the bullshit. I mean,
Yeah,
it had all the same charms without the hype and the
yeah,
the high prices. I mean, I couldn't when I was a starting art student in the 70s. I couldn't afford San Francisco then.
yeah. And San Francisco was cheap back then.
Yeah,
Like that
yeah.
was the era of you were when did you live in Oakland? What
Uh, I
years?
well, I lived in Oakland from 1975 to 1982.
Okay. And were you in college that entire time or
Well, I went to California College of Arts and Crafts from 1975 to 1978, and then I worked at Mama's Royal Cafe in Oakland from 1978 to 1982.
oh, okay. For some reason in my head when I read it, I thought those were concurrent. But yeah, one followed the other.
Yeah.
Okay. What was that? I'm so curious. I wanted to ask this a million times. Like at the end of Over Easy, you kind of ride off into the sunset. What was that? What were those like first months like after that? Like
Well,
as you set off on
after
your
the
path.
after the end of the customer's always wrong, I write it
Sorry.
at sunset because
Yeah.
the end of of Over Easy is the continuing story of working at the restaurant. But yeah, no, I went to New York and I had visited there a couple of times. I had made friends with the woman who was the cartoon editor at the National Lampoon, Sherry Flanagan, and she proved to be a great mentor of mine and basically taught me how to make a comic strip, which I didn't even know how to do at that point, and introduced me to a lot of people. And I started getting work doing illustration and comics in New York in the 80s, which was a thing you could still do then. Print was still the medium of choice.
Yeah.
I,
Yeah, I got a tiny piece of that late '90s, early 2000s because I half of my life as a creator was as an editorial illustrator, and I was doing all this stuff for weeklies and weeklies, newspapers, and magazines, and all the weeklies are gone. Like I was really surprised when I was looking something up in my hometown Ventura and saw that the Ventura Reporter was around. Now it's still around. I was like, well, Ventura sucks, but good for it for still having a weekly
you still hold a
paper.
grudge against Ventura.
Of course, forever. Yeah. So yeah, so you got in, you started with National Lampoon and got to who were some of the people who were some of the cartoonists who were around in the early 80s?
Oh, well, I mean, everyone, Roz Chess, Sam Gross, MK Brown, who I'm a big fan of. Um, oh gosh, there were so many. Rick Meyerowitz, uh, Bobby London. I mean, just a whole swathe of people who got
Mm.
regular work.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. It's funny. I teach at CCA. I teach inking now, in the falls, and I have a hard time explaining to the kids just what a different world we come from. Like, and
Yeah,
they're like 20, I'm 52, and I'm like, it doesn't feel to me like that big of a difference, but they have, I'll mention like, oh yeah, I did this job, and I'm showing them production styles that are analog production styles, which they can honestly really benefit from
yeah,
because they're really precious. They can be very precious working digitally, but I'm showing them
yes,
like you got to dash through work and you got to cycle through and get to your ideas faster rather than being really like I'm just going to labor over this one thing forever.
yeah, yeah,
And yeah, I think that's a thing that's shifted because there's not those opportunities for those gigs that are super fast turnover where you get like a call or an email from the editor and you got to have
yeah.
it that afternoon. I think it's good for you. It's terrible for you. Took years off my life, but as an artist, really honed the edge.
Yeah, I mean, I feel like I learned so much from working with editors. I learned everything about writing from working with editors that kids aren't learning today because nothing's edited.
Yeah.
Edited. I mean, it's editing is gone. I mean, there's a bunch of almost every article I read online is like I'm looking through it, going, could have cut here, could have cut here, could have cut here.
Yeah.
It's just gone. And the world I entered in the 80s in doing comics and illustration in New York was like a world I'd grown up to expect I could get that from. I mean, I was
Mhm.
raised, I was like bottle fed on classic American newspaper comics like Little Abner and Pogo and you know Terry and the Pirates and stuff like that. And it was like these people were Milton Caniff and Charles Schultz and all uh, Chester Gould, the greats. I mean, these people were
Yeah.
stars. They were millionaires, and
Yeah.
it was a viable career that you could pursue. And now that is all gone.
Hmm.
And I mean, it's also a lesson to kids today, like the world they're living in now, that could be gone too.
Oh, absolutely will be. Like
Yeah,
it's guaranteed. Like there's not, and that's one of the things that I really try to impart to them is like if you're a quote unquote real artist, you're gonna do this regardless. So like I get in front of them at the beginning of the year and I'm like, I don't know what your teacher is telling you about like careers. I can't really tell you about careers. I went about mine completely backwards. All I can tell you is if you're really an artist, you're gonna draw and I'm gonna show you how to do that. So that's
yeah,
that's what we're here for. And that's like what I meant. I mean, I'm a lifer, like I just got to do this. But
yeah. It's a
I
compulsion.
once
You
it
can't help it.
is. Yeah, like there's no quitting this. This is like being in a mob. It's like being in a really dorky mob. How did you go from doing National Lampoon to writing for television?
Well, I mean, it's weird because I had I just happened to be friends. Well, my husband worked on Pee Wee's Playhouse as a production designer and puppeteer with Gary Panter, who was friends with Matt Groening. And we were introduced to Matt. And when Matt got his show going, apparently he was asking all his cartoonist friends if they wanted to write an episode. And apparently I was the only one at the time who said yes. I mean, I don't know. So that was that. And then because Wayne and I both had like quote unquote heat from working on two big shows, we got ourselves Hollywood agents. We were sent to all these meetings where we were pitching shows. We had no idea, and nobody told us that the likelihood of selling a show to a major network was zip if you had not previously been a showrunner or on staff of a TV show. So it was just like this completely self-defeating cycle. And my Wayne, my husband, did a painting about the whole thing that he called "All That Fake Laughing for Nothing." And somehow I
At
got,
least you got something out of it. That's
yeah, I mean,
a
somehow
title.
I got on Designing Women because Linda Bloodworth was off winning the election for Bill Clinton, and it was the last season, and they needed some warm bodies in the room, and they got me and my infant son and the nanny there, which was like just a disaster. It was just horrible. I wasn't getting any sleep. I'd never been a mother before. I'd never been on staff of a TV show before. I'd never worked in an office before. And I was, expected to be there from 9 a.m. till 10 p.m. And that was not doable for me then. So it was just and the show was on its last legs, and the inmates were running the asylum. And it was just bad all the way around for me.
Yeah. So what was working on Pee-wee's like? I imagine that
was the opposite.
Yeah,
it was
okay. It was an office environment?
No, it was like me and Lynn Stewart, Miss Yvonne, the most beautiful lady in Puppetland, wrote a script. We gave it to Paul. Here's what happened. They shot it. I thought, oh, that's how it works. This is great. I'm going to have a great career.
Yeah.
It was like any other TV show ever.
Yeah, that gave you a false, that gave you real false hope for how things would work. Yeah. Mm-hmm. So we were talking about the importance of editing earlier. And so reading Do Admit, the bibliography on this is almost as long as the book. And the book's pretty freaking long. What is how far back do you go with them? I know you said that your mother read the American Way of Death. And I feel like what you have with them is kind of a parasocial thing where when I was a kid and I'd watched David Bowie, I was just I was hanging out with him in the video. We had a relationship for decades. And it ended when I kind of became an adult. But yeah, living in that world was really nice. And I imagine living in that Mitford world was amazing. But how'd you get from reading about them and your history with them to figuring out what the through line was? Or maybe back up, when did you decide you needed to do a book like this?
Well, I decided I needed to do a book because my obsession with them was threatening my marriage. I was bringing them up way too often in social situations and for way too long, and my husband was getting really mad at me. And I just thought, okay, I've got to channel this into something. And
it's not like toll roads. There's something relatable because everybody loves to talk about the history of toll roads.
Yeah. Well, I went to this conference, Biographers International, this year, and it was such a comfort to be in a room with other people who were as obsessed with their. Oh, here comes my coffee. Thank you. There were people who were as obsessed with their topics as I was with mine. So, I'm sure you have the same feeling about Major Taylor. It's like you're not alone.
Yeah. I'm looking forward to finding others like me when I read the book.
But you know how it is, once you start reading about your subject matter, you're like, okay, what were the times they lived in? How was it different? Mm-hmm. You're going down all these rabbit holes. And I don't know, just some people in their dotage take up bird watching. For me, it's history. I was never really that much into history until about 20 years ago when I started just reading all about history. Okay. I went to art school, so my background in history is sketchy. So I kind of backed my ass into the fan of history with the Mitfords. Now I know everything about the history of the 20th century. Because of that.
Yeah, I mean, they trot all the way through.
Yeah, and into the 19th. I mean, because there's this big doorstop of a book called the decline of the decline of the British Empire, and I couldn't make my way all through that, but I was thumbing through it and going, wait. So wait, you couldn't vote in Britain unless you were owned land, and 90% of the land was owned by 1% of the population. How do they even do that? How do you convince everyone else that you're superior to them and you get all the money?
I don't know. I think that's kind of the basis of the country we live in.
Yeah, It is in a way, isn't it?
And I think we're kind of trying to go back, or we're not, but I think there's definitely parties who are like, oh yeah, landed gentry, that's the way we should do
Yeah.
things.
Yeah.
There's something very, it's odd because at least British aristocrats were great with the turn of phrase. We have this nouveau riche aristocracy in the country.
Yeah, they're really good
It's
at
boring. Like there's no quips, there's no cleverness.
no,
They don't dress well. Like,
no, nothing.
at least, like, I was going to make a joke about Hugo Boss, but I don't think I will. But at least there were people dressed to the nines
Well,
in Hugo Boss.
yeah, exactly. And most people don't know that Hugo Boss was the official tailor of the Nazi Party, which is just a mind blower.
Mm-hmm. So next time you're dabbing that behind your ears.
And
Hugo Boss.
People have gotten offended when I have said that, the Nazis had their look down. They had style books for everything across the board. Their design was impeccable. It was consistent and it was beautiful. I mean, and that's why they're always the supervillains. Because
yeah, that's why people come to conventions just like stormtroopers. Like they kind of trailblaze that like dark thing. But yeah, when you look at Leni Riefenstahl's like A Triumph of the Will, like the visuals of that are amazing.
Yeah,
for a really horrifying subject.
I mean, we should thank our stars that the other side has such a shitty design sense. It would be even worse.
Yes. But we're at WNHHLP New Haven, 103.5 FM with Mimi Pond. So yeah, they trot all the way through the 20th century, but I feel like it might just be like my take on it, but I really feel like Decca to me was the star of the book because
Well, she bucked the whole system. I mean, everyone else was like status quo from one extent to another, but Decca absolutely was the rebel who turned her back on the whole idea of being an aristocrat and left England and became a complete American in every way. I mean, as much as she railed against, a lot of American policy, she embraced democracy.
Yeah. That was really striking, and I love seeing her history here in Oakland, which I think maybe we were talking about how Oakland has this great leftist history, but it also has like a really horrible history of redlining and of police abuse that
she was fighting against on the front lines, the absolute front lines.
Yeah, and I feel like she's a huge part of that history. Like I feel like she must have drawn so many people with that particular bent to Oakland particularly. When you sorry, I lost my place for a second about doing the network call out. So some of the techniques that you use in the book to condense time. I was just looking at this page. Way the viewers can see it, and that looks like something from like Fritz Lang's Metropolis. Like you have a lot of there's all through the book. There's this really great cultural references and stylistic references like from the time. And so I was trying to do something similar because you succeed in condensing a lot of time into smaller spaces. Because if you were to really delve into it, the book would be 3 times as long as it was. How did you? I tried to do that, probably inspired by your newsfeed on Instagram, but I wasn't quite as successful. What inspired that? Like, how did you come to that?
I was desperate to find a way to tell a story without it being just nothing but talking heads, which is unfortunately what happens with a lot of graphic biographies. And I, Pinterest has become my best friend. It's just a way of organizing images. Any and all images you could possibly imagine, you can put them all in one place and organize them into subheads. It's not just for planning your wedding shower, or your child's 3rd birthday party. It's people think it's that, and it's just a digital bulletin board for organizing images. And and then once you start, collecting things and putting them up, then our evil overlord sees what your taste is and starts showing you similar things. So even if I was stuck for ideas, I just scroll through Pinterest, and things would pop up, and I go, oh, I like that, I can use that, and sometimes things would suggest themselves from wordplay. Sometimes it was a matter of like, what year is it, and what's the vibe, and you're like thinking like 30s, 40s. A lot of advertising of these different eras would suggest things graphically that telegraphed the time and place, that kind of thing.
I'm thinking of the one page where you have, I think it's Diane, who's on the radio. She's represented by like 4 radios, just spouting all this Nazi stuff.
Yeah, because she wanted to start a radio station off the coast, on an island off the coast of Germany, to broadcast in English, basically propaganda to England, where otherwise you had to have a radio license to do that, and she of course couldn't get that there because her and Oswald Mosley's name were already mud in England. And she worked really hard to convince Hitler that she should have this radio station. It was like, and the promise was like, oh, there's no propaganda, it's just like all light news and women's shows. And she was even going to like have her own line of cosmetics that she was going to sell through it. Hello, Kardashians. And they were building this radio station on the island, and then war broke out. So that never happened, thank God. But yeah, she was a savvy businesswoman. She wasn't stupid.
Well, they were also savvy. It's like, it's nuts because any one person to have, any one family to have one person in there who did one of the things that one of them did in a month would have been mind-blowing. And they have these crazy, both the 2 sisters were friendly with Hitler, and Hitler was at one of their weddings, and like one of them becomes like this crazy like leftist rabble rouser. And there are these women who were denied education because they're women and because of their time. Like, so how does that happen, that they end up doing
that's
that?
the big question. And I think how that happens is, one thing they had was like, I think the brains kind of skipped a generation. Their grandfather had been the ambassador to Japan, and had written extensively about Japanese culture, and had traveled to Japan, and apparently fathered a couple of children with Japanese geisha, and spoke Japanese. And also, another Mitford fun fact, he consulted with Gilbert and Sullivan, and sang them the song Mia Sama, which became a big musical theme throughout the opera The Mikado. And I won't try to sing it for you. You don't want that. But it's, you would recognize it instantly if you heard it. So, I mean, a very influential, powerful figure. His older son, Clement, was supposed to inherit the barony and the giant house and everything. And Clement died in World War I. And no one had prepared David Mitford for this. And so he inherited this property. And it was the end of World War I. Giant country houses were white elephants, and he unloaded it for a song. He continued to manage money in the worst possible way throughout his entire life, and he always told his daughters there would be no money for them, so they better figure out what they were doing. So they are all like, from an early age, figuring out their exit strategies. On top of that, they're raised in isolation in the English countryside, only really mixing with other family members and very close friends. So they're in this hothouse, and Nancy, the oldest, is super smart and wildly witty, kind of mean, and she's leading the pack. So she's like raised the bar. You've got to be at least as funny as Nancy if you want to get by on a daily basis. And they've got their grandfather's library. So that's the other thing. So, I mean, they can't go anywhere, but they got all these books they can read. So you've got all that, and this kind of, and on top of it, they're not educated, they're not sent to school, so they're not socialized by outside sources telling them what they should be. I mean, sure, they had their parents saying, girls don't do this, girls don't do that, a lady never does, blah, blah, blah. But, they were like already, Nancy had already like taught them to make fun of their father. So authority was nothing. No one was telling them what they couldn't do, basically. So they were just doing what they wanted.
And so it came naturally to them. Like they were left to be who they were in a weird roundabout way.
In a weird way, yes.
Yeah.
Not
and certainly, and certainly, like their privilege allowed them access to more places, but that certainly wasn't like the spark, like that drive and that like intellect.
And Winston Churchill, his wife was David Mitford's first cousin, and so they spent a lot of time at Winston Churchill's home, and so they're like, there's a lot of really, high flown dinner conversation in a place like that, as you can well imagine. So, it's not your usual, just like cousin Winston's having us over for dinner. Oh, yawn.
Winston friggin' Churchill. Well, the book is due admit the Mitford sisters and me, drawn in quarterly. I love that you have no chapters. I love that you have no pages. I love that you broke all the rules on this. This is amazing. Absolutely love it. Like, absolutely love it.
Thanks so much.
Thank you so much for hopping on with us.
Thank you for having me.
We'll talk soon.
Okay, great.
Take it easy.
You too.